Hey guys, this is Jarrett Orr from Running It with Nate Sexton, and you are listening to the Am Side Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Am Side Podcast, the show that talks about all things disc golf. From weekend rounds with our mates to the Pro Tour over in the States, we've got you covered all from an amateur perspective. We're your hosts, Rob and Dale. Dale, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about what they can expect from this week's show?
Yes, well, we've had another event on the Pro Tour and, it was a very, very difficult course. So we had some great disc golf out there and was great to watch and gave us lots of talking points so we can go through today. And obviously, our listeners would have heard we have got another special guest. This week is Jarrett Orr from Running It with Nate Sexton. It was awesome to get another podcast host on the show and see how they did it and the reasons why they started. So, really looking forward to that one.
It was a great conversation and can't wait to share that. I mean, Running It was one of the reasons that we decided to, jump in and start a show ourselves. So it was great to sort of hear it from the horse's mouth, as it were. Just a couple of points before we jump into the tournament. We've got to shout out the sponsors of the show. So as always, the Am Side sponsored by dischub.co.uk. I mean, I've sold them enough, guys. Yeah, you know what they do. You know what disc they sell. And you know the benefits they bring. So definitely go check them out. Make sure you use our code AMSIDE5 for 5% off your next order. And also, I just want to mention that as we're recording it, this is Monday the 29th, looking into the fourth wall. But today is the first day we can get out and play disc golf again. Courses are opening. It's a little bit like in the films where all the flowers are opening and the sun's coming out. It seems like we're hitting the end of the light at the end of the tunnel. So I know that we'll be out this week enjoying reconnecting with some chains, hopefully. So it should be a good one.
Or not.
Or not. I mean, that's most of our rounds. I mean, at some point we hit the chains. It just depends on how many throws it takes to get there.
Yeah.
So, as you said, this week we had a fantastic slice of coverage with the Texas State Championships, and it was an interesting one. The course itself was ridiculous. Now, there's never been a course that I've seen more that I want to play, but equally would dread playing. I mean, watching this course, trees is the word. And if you listen to the coverage live, you'll know that some of those trees might be quite troublesome. But the trees on the course were ridiculous. There wasn't really lines. I mean, the commentators were saying that on the fairway is actually quite subjective because there isn't really fairways on this course, but the lines that you could take are sort of endless because of that. So I would love to play it, but I know that I wouldn't come away with a good score in any way, shape or form. But we did have some fantastic scores from day one. So I want to give a shout out to Big Germ and Casey White with incredible round one performances.
Yeah, man, it was the Bethpage Black of disc golf. For those who don't know, Bethpage Black is a disc golf course with a sign. Is a golf course with a sign that says this is for experienced golfers only. This same sign was at the start of Dogwood Gold, and I've never seen a course that challenges so much. To see these guys coming in with hot rounds, as you said, Big Gem coming in and Casey White with a 10 under on day one, is unbelievable because that course it lends itself to some big numbers. But we still saw the same sort of disc golf we see. We saw the winner come in at 28 under and absolutely smashing it. It just shows you the cream of the crop. Ricky Wysocki, big up to you.
Yeah, Wysocki with an amazing win. So not only did he come in really distanced from the next second and third places, but last round he won with style, getting the course record. And with 11 under, that shows you how difficult this course is. 11 under is the course record, but Ricky doing it with flair and pizzazz and all the kind of different words you can use for an incredible round. But he wasn't comfortable all the way through the tournament. I mean, like you said, German Casey having the hot rounds on round one. Round two, he was battling, and going into round three, he was battling with Matthew Oram, who isn't a new name by any way, shape, or form. He was playing back with Ken Climo as a younger disc golfer, but he put Ricky through his paces in those second and third rounds, and he was throwing some incredible shots. So it was great to see not new names, but names we don't hear as often spoken by the commentators. And going back, just shouting out to Casey White, as someone that watches the Simon Azot YouTube channel, and I'm sure most of our listeners do. Casey's been a big part of that channel, so we've seen him get his Discmania sponsorship, grow as a player, and deciding to go on a full-time tour this year. So it's great to see that he's made that jump, and he's stuck in the lead card all the way to the end of the end of the event, and it was just fantastic to see him there and showing what he can do on the course.
Oh, definitely, and it goes on from what we've seen all year so far. You know, we're seeing players that we haven't heard of before making it onto those league cards or shooting those hot rounds. You know, it's making this year of disc golf and the MPO so much more interesting because we haven't just got Paul Macbeth and Ricky Wysocki going at it. Yes, Ricky's just won back to back, but it hasn't just been him there and then. You know, it's great to see new and upcoming disc golfers shining because it shows us what we've got in years to come.
Absolutely. I cannot wait to speak in later podcasts about Gannon Burr, about Gavin Rathburn, about Casey White. You know what? It gives us more names to remember, so our job becomes slightly more difficult. But it's fantastic just seeing these people really performing with the elite that we have been used to seeing. And talking about the elite finally showing up, Kevin Jones, where has he been for the last 4 or 5 events? Yes, he didn't place amazingly well still, but he placed 5th, joint 5th, which I'd say, you know what, take it back. That's a damn good finish. But this is the first time we've seen anything from him so far this year, throwing some fantastic lines, some fantastic disc golf.
Yeah, it's finally he decided, you know what, yeah, let's probably start work, do your job, as Nate Sexton's little girl would say. But it's good to see him finally getting up there, and I hope to see in tournaments to come he's found his groove and he's ready to throw in those 100-foot jump putts, because I sure have missed them. I love watching Kevin Jones. I think he's a great player, but he just hasn't got off the mark this year. But he's finally getting there.
Exactly. And talking about getting off the mark, someone that is slightly lower down than he has been this year, this weekend, but still, he's also in that joint 5th position. I want to mention Calvin Heimberg. Now, I don't want to get a reputation for always talking about Heimberg, but this weekend, round 2, he had 2 eagle looks. I mean, he missed the putts, so it makes it redundant. But this guy is a disc golf robot. I was talking to some other golfers in the week, and we were talking about how whenever a commentator says this is uneagleable or the birdie chance here is very minimal, it will always be Calvin Heimberg that proves them wrong or is the exception to the rule. Now, if he can finish and he can complete and actually claim those scores on those holes, that's a different story. But he seems to find almost robotic or machine-like lines. So Kainborg as a nickname seems very fitting. But yeah, I mean, there's no love lost for the guy. I'm always going to have his back going into each round this year.
Well, try for show, putt for dough, mate. You know, if you can make those putts, then you'd have had an eagle. But
last weekend's coverage, you'll remember the highlight putt that he took. So he has got the putt as well. He just needs to maybe connect the two together, maybe introduce the two, his drives and his putts, for one round to see how they get along.
Typical Calvin fan, always living in the past.
That's coming from a Paul Macbeth fan, ladies and gentlemen. So moving over to the FPO, I mean, I'm not going to rub it in because I know you get bitter, but I predicted the win. I predicted Hayley King. I said it was her time. She came in with a fantastic win. Just an unbelievable performance this weekend. Like seven under, which if we're looking at FPO scores, 7 under for a course this difficult. Now that's an impressive win, an impressive score, and just an outright performance.
Yeah, we've spoken in past podcasts about how she needs to step it up this year. You know, she's been close, but no cigar. And this weekend, you know, she proved that she can do it. She's a young personality in the sport. And it's great to see her get that win, because she's been battling for it. You know, she had a big win last year, but this is only just going to be another confidence booster. I do not think this is the last win she's got this year.
Not at all. I think 4 or 5 I'd probably mark down. I think she'll end the season on a couple more and potentially take the USDGC again. You know, who knows? We will see.
Disc Golf Pro Tour, mate.
Disc Golf Pro Tour. There's too many tournaments.
There's too many majors.
I mean, we'll be covering all of them. Disc Golf Pro Tour. I stand corrected, but there's too many. So I'm gonna get it wrong. But she didn't have an easy time of the weekend. She had a great time, but not easy to get that top spot. Rebecca Cox was pretty much on her tail. The second and third round, they were on different cards, which was quite interesting as well. So it wasn't they weren't sort of playing off each other. So it was great to see that battle. But actually, Holly Finley came in with a fantastic second place. She was in third place all the way through round 3, pretty much, but she managed to snag at the end to get that second place, with Rebecca Cox coming in that third spot. So there was a lot of movement on the FPO, and it was just incredible to finally have a bit of a battle, because in the FPO we've seen actually the last few events that there's been one person take the top spot early on and just keep hold of it. So it was nice to have a little bit of unsurety or it to be a bit unsettled at the top.
Yeah, it's nice to see a proper chase card. You know, you've got the winner and then you've got someone chasing for it. I think that's what the battle should always be about. You know, you've got someone chasing for that win. So it was really nice to see. And then once again, Paige Pierce, where was she?
I don't know. I think she might have been back in the clubhouse. I mean, she may have well been. We're talking about the whole women's event. She came 11th, so she wasn't at the bottom at all of the event, but she came 11 with 11 off the pace. 11 off the pace. I think for Paige Pierce, that's going to be something that she's going to be devastated about. And we spoke about. We've spoken in the past about how maybe she's going to use some of these losses to build up momentum and come in with a win, and we haven't seen that yet. So, you know what? We're not Team Paige, but we're giving her a hard time because we want to see her do better, because she is that 5-time world champion and she needs to keep that quality as high as she can. And we know that she can do it. So I think we're just being harsh because we know that she can.
Oh, absolutely. You know, she's a world-class player. She just, again, hasn't got off the mark this year. I'm sure she'll bounce back, but I hope we're not going to be saying every week that she needs to bounce back. You know, she's outside top 10. That's going to be disappointing for her. But let's get on to the next one and then the next one, and let's see what she can do.
So let's move on from a world-class player to a world-class podcaster. This weekend, we were lucky enough to sit down with Jarrett Orr, who's the creator and co-host of Running It with Nate Sexton, the largest podcast, disc golf-related podcast in the world, and the largest sports podcast in Malaysia. So there's a couple of fantastic achievements there. Jarrett had some amazing things to say about podcasting and the sport of disc golf in general. So let's go meet up with past Robin Dale and Jarrett to see what they had to say. Jarrett, welcome to the Am Side.
Thank you so much, man. I'm excited to be here.
Amazing. Well, just before we jump into the long stories and conversations we're about to have, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about who you are and what you're doing within the disc golf scene?
Well, I started podcasting probably about 5 years ago, something that I just really enjoyed. It was actually more about wanting to sell advertising in podcasting was how it all started. And I realized that the only way that you're ever going to be able to sell advertising in podcasting is to just kind of get your own podcast. So I started out in the world of professional wrestling with a gentleman named Al Snow. From there, I hosted a show with Jose Canseco, who was a Major League Baseball MVP and just a pretty crazy guy. And after I finished the Jose Canseco show, I kind of took a step back and I thought, you know, I want to get into another project, but I'm not sure exactly what I want to do. And disc golf has been a passion of mine for probably the last 5 or 6 years now. And with COVID, there wasn't, a ton of disc golf stuff out there. A lot of players weren't playing, and of course the tour was still going on, but I missed Nate Sexton, and I kind of reached out to him and came up with an idea of doing a disc golf podcast, but something a little bit different than what a lot of the other disc golf podcasts are doing. I realized that there wasn't a lot of information on the golfers themselves. Right now, we all know what they're throwing and who their sponsors are. I wanted to find out more about the actual golfers. So Nate and I started running it with Nate Sexton. Last night we recorded our 17th episode, which they drop every Friday morning, available podcasts everywhere.
Wow.
Cheap plug. We've been having a great time doing it, and we've, obviously we talk a lot of disc golf, but we find out more about the golfers themselves, stuff that I would have never known about. How Nate Doss got into brewing beer, and the fact that Jeremy Colling is this amazing graphic artist and has this deep passion for art, and that Paul Ulibarri thinks he's a top 5 sidearm thrower of all time. Just a lot of really neat, fun stories, both about disc golf and the history of disc golf. But then we get to find out about the golfers themselves, which is something that I've really enjoyed.
Yeah, we're both big fans of running it. We love it. It was one of the sort of things that got us into doing the podcast. So we'll come on to running it in a bit later. But I'm interested to know, how did you get into disc golf?
So I, for the longest time, fought the disc golf phenomenon. My brother-in-law and all of his friends would go out and play, and I was like a strict ball golf kind of guy, and I played a lot of ball golf. And they'd be like, yeah, we're going to the park to play disc golf. And I'm like, whatever, you shoeless hippies, go do whatever it is that you do. And, I'll be at the country club. And so finally, the one day I decided, I gave in. I went out and I watched him throw a disc. And then I watched me throw a disc. And he was better. And I thought to myself, man, I got to get better at this. And I was immediately hooked from the first time. And I didn't even know that this disc golf world existed. And when I realized how terrible I was, like anyone, do it yourself. You hop on YouTube and figure out how to do this the right way. And from YouTube, I found this world of professional disc golf. And then those guys made me realize really how bad I was. So I just started consuming all of the disc golf that I possibly could. I mean, late at night, I was up watching tutorial videos and, old tournaments and new tournaments and champs versus chumps. And I just literally became hooked on disc golf. It was something that I just couldn't shake. And that's kind of how I am right now.
It's pretty much how we started. We started watching videos and stuff, and you're right, it's that phenomenon. It gets you hooked. I played ball golf since I was 7, and I haven't picked up a golf club in nearly 2 years because disc golf has kind of taken over everything.
I'm done with clubs. I don't even know where my clubs are right now, but I can tell you where every single disc that I have is, for sure. So yeah, it was a change that I never thought would happen. I never thought I would get into disc golf. I really thought it was, so for anybody who, well, I guess if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably pretty interested in disc golf, but for so long, I just really fought it and wasn't something that I took serious. And I guess I got in at the right time, because with this boom that's going on right now, it's been good for the running it business for sure.
Yes, I want to touch on that. So as Dale alluded to just now, we're fairly new to disc golf as well. The similar story in terms of COVID has really forced us into the sport, but I'm glad it did, because it's something that's really sort of, it made 2020 bearable as an understatement. But it's also the accessibility of the sport. Now, I'm sure you'll agree that because it's whilst being a phenomenon, being small can allow anyone to almost have quite a big stake in the disc golf world. So we've started this podcast, and it hasn't been running for too long, but already within the UK, we've got a great listenership, and there's people that know what we're doing just through this platform. Can you sort of talk a little bit about the motivations to start a disc golf podcast? I know you said you got into podcasting to explore advertising and looking at passions, but was it I'm passionate about disc golf, so I'm going to start a disc golf podcast? Or was it, I see a gap in the disc golf media market and I'm going to jump in? Or both?
Yeah, it was a lot of things. The first thing is like I said, I love disc golf. I love talking about disc golf. I love watching disc golf. I love learning about disc golf. So it was a natural fit for me to want to get into that. I saw that there wasn't a ton of disc golf podcasts out there. Now, there are some. I know that you guys spoke with Hunter from the foundation. They do some great podcasts over there, and the Flight Diary, and people have their own YouTube pages. But like I said, there was nothing that was really kind of giving us an inside look at the golfers themselves. And that was something that I was really interested in. And I was looking at this bubble and I'm like, man, this is, and it's kind of what I told Nate. I said, if we can get in right now, we'll be one of the first major shows to do it this way. So it was an opportunity for me to talk about disc golf all the time. It was an opportunity for me to rub it in the face of everybody that I play with who's better than me. I'm like, hey, listen, you might be better than me, man, but I'm making a lot more money off of disc golf than you are right now. So, it was just an opportunity to get more out there. I kind of got to the point where I hit the end of the internet. I had watched all the tournaments that were available. I've watched all the tutorial videos. I subscribed to everybody's YouTube, and I'm like, man, I'm running out of stuff here. And it was one of those things where it's like, if I want more content, I'm going to create my own content. And that's what we were able to do. And so that was kind of how it all came out, and everything just kind of fell into place. But my motivation behind it was really pretty selfish in the fact that hey, I want to be friends with Nate Sexton because I think he's awesome. I love Champs versus Chumps and Big Sexy. And I want to talk about disc golf, and I want to talk to other disc golfers, and I want to put more information out there for this explosion in disc golf right now. So with all those things that combined, it was just kind of an easy fit.
I think it goes without saying that all of those goals and things you wanted to achieve have been hit, because we're like Dale said, we'll stop saying it, but we're huge fans of the show. And I think what you said there's really spot on with the fact that these people that you've got the foundation podcast family that they've now built. You've got the Flight Diaries. Everyone's got their own niche. There's no overlap. There's no copy and paste with disc golf podcasts currently, which I think is great. So I listen to all of them because each one gives me something else as a sort of as a consumer of disc golf content. And over here in the UK, we have there's 3 disc golf podcasts. There's Don't Shoot, which is a live Facebook one, and they really sort of cover UK specific disc golf and the sort of the community we have. We have In the Chains, which are brothers up to the north who I think they've got a little bit more sort of very much about their rounds and a bit of banter within what they're doing. And they also have some great guests on as well. We've shared a couple of names on both of our shows. So but we're not seeing that overlap, which is great because it doesn't feel like you're stepping on any toes, which is always great.
Yeah, that was one of the things that Nate was a little worried about. He was like, I'm doing Showmez, Champs versus Chumps, and I'm calling disc golf, and there's just so much out there. Is there enough to give to people to keep it fresh? And I said, absolutely there is. People want this, they're craving it. So that's kind of how we started. And the first few episodes, was just kind of Nate and myself and just kind of getting acquainted with each other and talking a little bit about him. And then we started plugging in some guests. We had Jeremy Coling and Paul Ulibarri and Paul Macbeth and Nate Doss, and that was all really cool. And like I had mentioned earlier, then we started doing like Dave Dunapace and Sam Ferrens, and we just got done with Stork. And it's really the history lessons behind the sport. And I don't think there's many people that are out there giving that. So I think the fans have really been enjoying it. The numbers have been great. The feedback has been wonderful. So I couldn't be any happier with how it's all working out.
No, it's great to see, and obviously great to see you're doing well in Malaysia as well, because obviously
killing it. We're killing it in Malaysia. Killing it in Malaysia. Nate likes that as well. I bring it up all the time. I'm pretty sure I brought it up again in last night's recording. I just want everybody to know the stronghold that we have over there. It's important.
There's going to be, next time you go to Malaysia, there's statues of you and Nate. So that's how
I
big you
believe
are there.
so. I kind of think that's the way it's going. Absolutely.
Well, I want to touch on Nate because obviously he was our first guest we had on the podcast, and I think he was that turning point for us of where we wanted to take the podcast. Because the day that Nate said yes to us was incredible. It made us think like we're about to talk to Nate Sexton. And when we spoke to him, it was incredible. So how did you approach him and think, do you know what? I want Nate Sexton for this podcast.
Well, I'll tell you, it wasn't easy. The first time I reached out to him, he was kind of like, yeah, no thanks. And I was like, I'm not sure I explained myself properly here, Nate. So I'm going to take another run at this. And I sent him over some tape of some of the other shows that I've done, and some of the projections of what I thought our show could do, both listener wise. And let's be honest, there is some money to be made in it, but when you're putting this much work and this much time into it, it's okay to be able to do that. I don't feel bad about it. But Nate was really like, hey man, I've got a full schedule. I've got a 3-year-old at home. I'm doing all of these other projects. I really appreciate it, but I just don't, I don't know. So him and I kind of went back and forth for like 2 months, bouncing ideas off of each other and talking about different ways. And finally I was like, look, man, let's put a show in the can. Let's see what it sounds like. Let's see if you're comfortable with it. If you hate it, I'll press delete and we'll walk away as friends. If you like it, let's put it out there and see what people think. So he was just worried about spreading himself too thin. Nate is also extremely humble. He just does not realize what a big deal he is. And I tell him all of the time. In fact, he tells a story in the last podcast about being noticed. He was out riding his bike with his daughter and someone said, hey, are you Nate Sexton? And I'm like, yeah, Nate, it's because you're a celebrity, man. And I don't think that's really clicked into him. He's just a dad, a husband, a disc golfer. And as far as a person goes, I don't know if I know anybody that is, he's as good as they come, man. He really is a solid person. And it's just been an amazing experience for me to be able to not only work with him, but to develop a friendship with him. And, now I find myself on Sundays, we're texting back and forth about what's going on in disc golf, or, hey, did you see this headline, or check this out? Or, I just spoke with this guy. He wants to come on the show. It's kind of surreal for me, but it's really just been an awesome experience.
So you're saying that Nate said yes only through Stockholm syndrome. So if you keep saying it enough, it's going to happen. And we can definitely account to sort of just how solid and down to earth he is. When we had him on the show, it was a great experience. And I think to our advantage that that sort of sense of not thinking he's a celebrity. He was like, yeah, I'll do a podcast. But actually, if you look at we call it football, you call it soccer. But if you look at people doing football podcasts over here in the UK, you're never going to get the top flight players on a podcast that's been running for 2 episodes. So kind of to the advantage of a lot of disc golf media, we can see ourselves getting some of these huge names onto our content because maybe they haven't quite realized just how sort of idolized they are.
Yeah, it never gets old for me, and I don't want to make Nate look bad. So, he's like, yeah, we're going to hop on in a couple minutes with Macbeth. And I'm like, yeah, all right, whatever. No big deal. And meanwhile, I'm just like totally fanboying out inside and trying to bite it down. But it's been amazing because I've spoken with, like I said, in the podcasts that I've done in the past. I also do a music podcast as well. And you talk to a lot of people that are kind of like, yeah, all right, I'll give you a few minutes of my time, but you better make it worthwhile. And that's never been an issue. That being said, when you have Nate Sexton reaching out to his friends, it certainly makes it a whole lot easier to get them to want to come on and agree. But like I said, as far as working with Nate goes, it's just been an amazing experience. He's just such a great guy. He's incredibly smart. And like I said, I'm very lucky to have an awesome partner like him.
Yeah, you say about obviously Nate being able to text his friends and stuff and say, like, oh, come on my podcast. I can't relate to that, but I generally think by having someone like him on the show and then Ezra and people like that, it's helped us build our brand. It was only the other day where we texted a pro or we messaged a pro on there, and they said, look, you guys are killing it. We know that. We're hearing about you, and obviously we'll give you time. And it's like that to us was. I sent Rob. I screenshotted it. Rob can see the messages anyway, but I screenshotted it and said, "Man, how cool is this? We are being noticed on the pro scene, which is for us mental."
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's an outrageous thing, when we're doing these podcasts and people are like, "Oh yeah, so I was listening to the Brody episode," and I'm like, "You're listening to our podcast?" It's just it's really been it's been surreal to say the very least, to go from somebody who used to just go out and smash discs into trees and throw them into the water, and to now be able to hang out and talk with and build some friendships with some of these pros has just been an experience that I'll never forget.
And it quickly becomes normal. Actually, just to correct Dale, Nate was our first interview, but second episode. So it was Ezra, Nate, Vanessa. I think I'm getting my maybe my orders wrong, but you can tell in those earlier episodes that we're slightly fanboy. So it's what's your favorite color, or what's your favorite shape? All these kind of sort of giddy questions and giddy responses that we have to pros, but. Now we're just, we're sitting down with these guys. Can't say names because we release them as guests on our channels. But it definitely feels a lot more normal to week on week just chatting to the best players in the world at a sport that we love.
Sure. There's been a lot of times doing podcasts, especially with Nate, where I'm just sitting there and I'm like, I feel like I'm just a fan who gets to have the first download. And then I'll realize that there's a pause and I'm like, oh, that's me. I'm supposed to be jumping in here. But I'm just so blown away by listening to these stories that it's really been cool.
Awesome. So talking about guests and being a fan, and maybe you've already had them on, but is there a dream guest? And when you started the podcast, you thought, man, if we could get that person, we're done. That's my goal achieved for who we have on the show. Because I know me and Dale was a huge Brody fan, so I think he was quite jealous that you had him on. I'm a big Calvin Heimberg fan, but I'm just a fan of everyone on that top tier and over in the Pro Tour. So anyone for us is just it's a miraculous day. But who for you is someone that you want to get on or have had on, and it was just a fantastic experience?
I guess without sounding too cheesy, for me, it's Nate. For me, it's the opportunity to have Nate. I tell people all the time, people are tuning in for you, Nate. And then the fact that you have these friends that get to come on and chat with us as well is an added bonus. But I truly believe that if we didn't do guests, and we just did an episode a few weeks ago, Ask Nate Anything, where it was just Nate and I bouncing fan questions and talking about different things. And that show performed just as strong as any of the other shows did as far as downloads go. Obviously, I wanted to talk to Paul Macbeth, who was somebody that, I just love watching. The Jeremy Colling episodes, we've done 2 of them already. It was just so much fun watching him and Nate interact and seeing how friendly they actually are and how well they know each other. I was really excited about having Simon on. And then there were some guests that I was kind of maybe not as familiar with, but I knew. My favorite episode by far is the Dave Dunapace episode. For anybody that's listening, if you haven't checked out the episode of Running It with Nate Sexton with Dave Dunapace, he's the co-founder and president of Innova Discs. He invented the discs that we basically use today, that beveled edge, and to just hear the stories about what it was like before that and what it was like transitioning through that and building this empire. That to me, when we got done that episode, I was just completely blown away by how amazing it is. There's some folks that are connected through Innova, some celebrity ambassadors that we want to speak with and find out, their love of the sport. So, it's tough for me to say, there was one person I knew we absolutely had to have. For me, the must have was Nate Sexton.
Also, we talk about celebrities there. And I know you talk a little bit about the NFL on your show occasionally, but I know that Aaron Rodgers is a disc golf player. So, I mean, surely that's the almost the height of a celebrity that you could get on that isn't a disc golf player. I mean, I think that could be a good goal. I mean, maybe we'll have him on. Who knows?
Yeah, I tweet and Instagram at Aaron Rodgers all the time. Turns out that guy's busy doing other stuff, but I would love to get Aaron Rodgers on. We've spoken about getting Ben Askren on, who's got a big fight coming up with one of the Paul brothers, but he loves disc golf, and I know him and Paul and Brody are friends, and they all play together. We've had some conversations with a NHL goalie, Casey DeSmith from the Pittsburgh Penguins, who's a diehard disc golf fan. So we want to get some folks outside of the tour on as well. But we're just having a lot of fun with what we're doing, and to hear everybody's different takes on things. The Brody Smith episode was a lot of fun. I know you said that you guys are Brody fans. I had a lot of fun with that episode. He had some interesting takes on how disc golf is broken down, and I've got some things that I think would be awesome to change the game as well. Some ideas that I would like to start kind of getting out there. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think that Brody episode for me was, I mean, without just being a Brody fan, because I am, he was one of the reasons I got into disc golf, but I love how much he cares about disc golf. And some people might take it as arrogance and stuff like that, but it's not. It's Brody just wanting to change the sport for the better. And, he's doing everything he can to get his opinion out there because it matters. He's got 2.2 million followers on YouTube. PDGA and the Pro Tour can't discount that. He is known and he can change things.
So to piggyback off what Dale said there, in the episode of Running It, he mentioned that there should be like tiers of getting into the PDGA. And actually, currently, he wouldn't even make those tiers. So what he's doing is he's suggesting things to grow the sport and make the sport better. But like Dale said, a detriment to him in some cases. But that's just how dedicated he is to make the sport as good as it can be.
Absolutely. So here, I'll drop a hot take on this show that I haven't brought up on Running It. So Brody talked a lot about the money and how to monetize disc golf. And one of the things that he's absolutely correct about is there is a lot of money being spent on disc golf and being put into disc golf. I think one of the issues are that it's going into so many different places. It's tough to funnel it. And if you were to ask me what I would do to the sport of professional disc golf, I would like to see it become a true professional league, right? So you've got, you've got professional football or soccer, which is real big over there. Obviously here we've got the NBA and the NFL and the NHL. I would like to see a true governing body start a professional disc golf league. And the way that I would like to see it would be something like you have the PDGA step up and start a true league. And the way that you could do this is by franchises, teams, right? So if you want to buy an NFL team, you want to buy an NHL team, you buy in and you become part of the league. I would like to see these manufacturers do that, start a team. So you have the PDGA, which is your professional disc golf league. You've got Innova and MVP and Discraft and Discmania and Latitude 64. And any of these manufacturers that want to compete in this top level league, they have a buy-in fee to purchase a franchise within this league. And then I would like to see disc golf become a little bit more team oriented. So every tournament is played the same way, except for you've got Team Innova, who's fielding 20 players, Team Discraft, who's fielding 20 players. And at the end of the tournament, you have an overall team winner. So Team Innova won this. Now you'd still pay out a bonus to the top performer, so you could still get those kind of individual accolades into it. I'd like to see a point system go into this, where each team is given a certain amount of points for a win. So a win would be 10 points. A second place victory would be 5 points. And at the end of the season, your two top point getting teams, they go head to head, and then you have a world championship for a team, and set it up that way. After the season, if you wanted to take your top 20, 30, or 50 players from the league and run an individual tournament, which would be like their version of an all-star game or a Pro Bowl type thing, you do that, and then you have an overall winner who's presented as your league champion or grandmaster or Yokozuna, whatever you want to call them, and you still can get that individual accolade out of it. The other problem, I think, is that you've got a ton a ton of media companies out there. Now, they all are doing great work. But you've got Jomez and Central Coast and Gatekeeper and Disc Golf Network. And I think the problem is people are picking and choosing, to where if you are a fan of one of the traditional big professional sports, you don't get to pick and choose. They tell you the game is on this channel on this day, and if you want to watch it, you go and watch it. I think that if we could mainstream it more, and this would also be a way to make the game more important for some of the players that aren't in the spotlight, right? For instance, if you're a Paul Macbeth fan, you now need Andrew Presnell to play well on Sunday because you want Paul and Team Discraft to take home the win. Just like if you're a Tom Brady fan, you need his linebackers to play well on defense because that's how Tom Brady gets back to the Super Bowl and wins the Super Bowl. I think it's something that could really help grow the sport quite a bit and help people get into it. I don't think a huge change like that is something that we're ever going to see. But if they really wanted to monetize it and funnel all of the money into one place, that's the way to do it. And realistically, the name recognition, the Disc Golf Pro Tour or the PDGA or whatever you want to call it, that is because of the amazing players that have come through and have been associated with that. If all of the top players went and said, hey, this is where we play now, this is the league that we play in, that now becomes the premier league to watch disc golf.
Nice. And I think the way you're saying that needs to be run is pretty much all I kept thinking there is how Formula One's run. You have all your teams, you have Mercedes, you have a Red Bull, you've then got their drivers, you've got the World Championship, Lewis Hamilton wins, but Mercedes have then got the Constructors Championship. They've got, so that could be your Discraft is your constructor. And I think, I can only watch Formula One in one place. I can turn my TV, I watch on Sky Sports. Across the world, it's going to be different, but I can only watch it there. And I think you're right. I think there's so much money going into disc golf that we're not seeing that spent in the right places. I would love to see purses. Ricky this weekend took home $2,000. Paul took home 1,600. I want to see purses, 10, 15, 20,000 pounds. That when that win comes in, that's life changing. When Hayley King won the Pro Tour last year, the event, she's home 20 grand. That's life changing. And I think the money needs to be spent in the right places. I think you're completely right.
And that's only going to come from sponsorships and from, they're not going to get a $100 billion TV deal right now. Like some of these other big sports are getting. They're never going to see that, but you get it through sponsorships. And what attracts sponsors is viewership. And I think the big problem is you've got, Jomez says, well, hey, we got 35,000 viewers, and Central Coast got another 26,000, and Gatekeeper got another 14,000, and the Disc Golf Network had 39,000. And it's being spread so thin that if there was just one entity that said, this is where everybody's going to come to, all of the eyes will be directed here, then you can start getting bigger sponsors included. And when bigger sponsors become included, that's when you can start having bigger payouts. But right now, in my opinion, and I'm not taking anything away from any of these companies, I view them all. I think they all do an amazing job. Unfortunately, I think that in some ways it does hurt the business, though, because if you had everybody tuning into one, hey, do you want to advertise on the NFL on Fox? Because the only place you're going to see the NFL on Sunday for that 1:00 game is on Fox. So if you want to watch it, this is where you're going to watch it. Yeah, sponsors, yes, I want to be included because I know all the eyes are on that. It would change quite a bit if every channel could broadcast the game, because now it's, well, do you want to advertise the NFL on Fox or the NFL on CBS or the NFL on ABC or the NFL on USA Network? That would really dilute, I think, the entire sport, and it would take quite a bit away in sponsorship money. Now, again, it's a kind of a different beast because the TV deals alone pay for these NFL teams to be profitable. But I just think that is the number one way to be able to get this done. And as Brody was talking about it, I knew the best way. Well, I knew what I thought the best way to do it is. And I think that until you see them transition into something like that, you're going to continue to have these issues.
And another thing is merchandise. Me and Dale are huge swag fanboys. We like the merch. I mean, Dale's wearing his foundation cap to the listeners, the listeners at home. And yeah, you're right. Jerseys currently, I think brands and manufacturers give iron-on stamps, and they can put it on a jersey of their choice. But I want to wear a Calvin Heimberg Innova jersey with a cool badge. I want this. Like, I'm waiting for a running it of Nate Sexton hoodie. You know, the opportunity for merchandise, hats, jerseys, hoodies, coats, splash jackets, everything.
Well, I know who I'm going to vote for the next PDGA president, because I think you do a great job, and I think I love how passionate you are, because we're passionate, and it's good to talk about things. But I think it shows how far our sport has come, but how far it's got to go. We're moving forward,
Absolutely,
but there's still distance to go.
No doubt.
So I'm going to ask you a few questions, Garrett. Basically,
I'll give you a few answers.
So I ask every guest we have on the same questions, because I'm interested in what they've got to say. Now, my first one, I think I already know part of the answer, but so it's yourself and 3 others. You're going out on a Sunday to play disc golf on the Pro Tour. Who are you choosing to play with?
Because I like to have fun when I go out. I've got 3 kids. I've got like 4 or 5 full-time jobs. If I'm going out to play disc golf, it's because I want to go have some fun. So, give me Big Sexy Barry. Give me Nate and Big Germ and Yuli. And I think that I'd be able to learn a lot. But most importantly, I'm pretty sure we'd have a pretty damn good time.
Yeah, I thought that was going to be the answer, and I couldn't think of 3 better people to go and play disc golf with. Mainly because whilst Nate's not looking, I'm taking a Firebird from his bag. But apart from that, we'll have a great time. Next question: What is your favourite event on tour? What one do you look forward to watching every year?
I mean, obviously, the Worlds is a big deal. To be able to see who's going to be crowned the world champion is something that's exciting. And so that's something that obviously I always circle on the calendar. Same to be with the US DGC. The United States Disc Golf Championship is really big. But if you're just going to, my favorite is probably the Beaver State Fling. Because I lived in Portland for 6 years. I've had the opportunity to play Milo MacGyver, quite often. So it's a course that when they're there, I'm like, oh yeah, I know you got that big tree coming up at the end of you got to make sure. So for my personal reasons, I love the Beaver State Fling. That's where Philo got that ridiculous albatross that you see all the time. And so I guess just because I've had the opportunity to play the course, I'm familiar with it, and I love to see Portland get the love. I'm going to say the Beaver State Fling.
You're not the first person to say there's a lot of love for that competition. So I'll definitely keep an eye out for that. And you say about Worlds, me and Rob are yet to experience a Worlds. It wasn't on last year. So this year, when it comes up, it's going to be our first live Worlds. And I'm so excited. I don't know about you, Rob.
Oh, massively. I do want to ask a question, and this is to both of you, because you mentioned Philo's ace as Albatross ace. Now, I've heard it said both ways. Is it an ace Batross or is it an albatrace?
I'm good with either. I'm good with either. It's that's a shot that when it comes up, I watch it. I mean, I watch that shot probably 3 or 4 times a week because I'm constantly in the rabbit hole on YouTube, and I'm like, oh, there's Philo's play. Let's watch that one more time. So yeah, I'm good with either of those.
I like
albatrace.
Let's go with that.
Amazing. And that brings us on to the last question we ask all of our guests, and it's maybe it's like somber part of disc golf, but it's a very large part of the game, and that's losing discs. Now, no one likes losing a disc, but we've all done it. Can you tell listeners a story about a time where you've lost a disc which meant more than any other time you lost a disc? Was it a special disc? Was it a stupid shot? Can you sort of cast us back to a moment?
And I've lost some plastic, boys. Let me tell you. I just threw my favorite destroyer in the pond yesterday before we played, and I actually brought it up on the podcast. And it turns out that Nate knows a guy, so I'm gonna get some more destroyers headed my way. I'm not a disc collector, okay, and you could hear my disdain for it quite a bit on Running It with Nate Sexton. People talk about the Sexton Firebird, what a great disc it is. How the hell would anybody know? Nobody's throwing these things. People are hanging them on their walls. Get them out there. I've lost a Sexton Firebird. I've lost a Wysocki Explorer. I've lost a McPro AVR. And I know these discs are never coming back. I've started writing, I used to write girls' names on the inside of my disc, right? Like Stephanie, and then my phone number, in hopes that somebody would be like, oh, let me call Stephanie and see if there's a reward for getting my disc back. It's worked. Nate's not a fan of that. I just joke with Nate now and tell him I write his name on the inside of all of my discs. Gosh, I've seen my brother-in-law, who I play with quite a bit, threw his favorite disc in the water. And it was in December in Buffalo, New York, which is always extremely cold here. To even be able to play at that time of the year is a phenomenon. And guys, I'm not kidding when I tell you that he called up our friend and went to his house and picked up his wetsuit. And in like 18 degrees, they were in the water digging around looking for this disc. There's no disc that I'm that connected to, but I've definitely lost one. I'll tell you what, I lost the first run Paul Macbeth Undertaker for no reason. I threw the right shot. I knew where the drop off was. I was nowhere near it. And it took this weird ground action and hit a tree. And from that tree, it went right over the edge, and we had no chance at finding it. That one still burns me a little bit, just because, if I throw it into the water, if I throw it into the deep woods and I can't find it, that was my fault. That one I lost for no reason. I threw it where I wanted it to go, and it just did some crazy stuff. So if you're asking me personally, it's that one.
Brilliant. And Rob, to our listeners, just so you know, 18 Fahrenheit is
yeah.
minus 8
I was trying to work out what this strange language was, but I got
still minus 8 degrees to go into a lake. There's no way I'm going anywhere near it.
I think I've paddled into a very shallow bit of water when it was probably around -10. But yeah, that's incomprehensible going into waters that cold, especially for a little bit of plastic, which you can always replace.
Well, we know if we need to get this back from cold water, we'll just send Vanessa in, because she seems to like doing it.
Go right in for him.
Amazing. Well, Jarrett, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. We massively respect all of you guys that are big in the disc golf scene, coming and sitting with us and chatting to us on our small but growing UK disc golf podcast. So we really appreciate you.
Yeah, I'm happy that you guys got me in now before you guys grow too big and I'm not a worthy enough guest. But just like anybody, I'm just a fan who's having a lot of fun. And because I'm a fan and I know a bunch of fans, I thought, hey, this is a cool way to get some disc golf content and some cool stories out there. So I'm happy that you guys are enjoying it. I'm blown away anytime anyone's ever like, oh, wow, I love your podcast. Thank you so much. I'm like, thank you. I'd be doing this for free. I'd pay to be doing this. So I'm extremely lucky, and I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to come on and just talk some disc golf.
Really, well, don't worry about that. We'll always have time for you, and hopefully we'll get you back on in the future. Maybe we can talk about some of the other guests you've had on. Until that point,
anytime.
Please use this point to plug anything you have going on. I know you have other podcasts. I'm a big fan of Bradley's House, which is the music podcast you alluded to earlier. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about where they can find a little bit more of your stuff?
Absolutely. I appreciate that. So we are on Instagram and Facebook at Running It with Nate Sexton. You can follow Nate on Instagram at Frisbee Nate. I am at Jarrett Orr 222. And then you guys can also check out Bradley's House, which is a music podcast that we talk a little bit about the band Sublime. Got my shirt on today. And that is with Sublime frontman Bradley Noel's sister, Kelly Noel, who's absolutely amazing. She's doing some incredible work for the Noel Family Foundation in honor of her brother. In fact, I know we had Frank Turner on, who's kind of a big deal. He's a big deal everywhere, but I know he's a real big deal over there. And I'm just having a lot of fun doing that as well. So you can check that out, available on all podcast platforms. I'm extremely grateful for my amazing partner in all things life and business related, Anna, who produces these shows and puts just endless hours and just doesn't get the credit that she deserves because she's behind the scenes. But there would be no show without her. So yeah, man, it's anywhere that you guys are listening to podcasts, YouTube, you can check us out, Running It with Nate Sexton or Bradley's House, and just having a lot of fun talking about things that I love.
Amazing. Well, make sure you go check those out. I know I'm already subscribed to everything you just mentioned there, but I know our listeners will get a lot of joy out of also exploring that for themselves. But until next time you're on, Jarrett, thank you so much for coming on, and hope you have a good day.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you. I love what you guys are doing, and I'll keep tuning in myself.
Wow, what an awesome guest. We hope to get him back on. He said that we might get too big for him as a guest, but as I said, that's never going to be the case. And I'm sure he has a lot more to say about podcasting, disc golf, and maybe where the league's going. He seemed very passionate about that topic in particular. So maybe we can address that in a future episode.
Oh, mate, he's the new PDGA president. He's got some great ideas and some great thoughts. So it was great to sit down with him this week. So Rob, this week we have not got an event to predict. So
we do not.
So the listeners think. This week returns the Battle of Dale and Rob. We have got our first club round back on Sunday. So Rob, why don't we, for a bit of fun, predict that and see how that's going to go?
Yeah, absolutely. So just a quick overview of the course for the listeners. It's a fairly intermediate course, but it's still got a couple of challenges. I usually come out around +5, +7 in between those numbers. You're around the +10 normally. But here's the thing, here's the catch. The last club round we had was months ago. I know you've been doing field work, I've been doing field work, you've been doing putting, I've been doing putting. And I think that you might be closing that gap a little bit on me. So here's our predictions. And in the spirit of teamwork, I think we're both going to come out with a +6. I think we're going to draw. And then we'll have a shoot off and then I'll win.
Yeah, I think you're right, mate. I think that's about right. I think putting was the thing that let me down last year. So I've been doing a lot of work around that in the garden. So yeah, I think I'll go the same. I'll go +6.
I'll tell you what we'll do. And I've got a little update from a previous episode for listeners. When we had Vanessa on, I was mentioning about the meteor-shaped hole in my bag. I've filled that hole now. So I've got a beautiful Tour Series Vanessa Van Dijk and Meteor. If we do have a draw and we need to have a shoot-off, we'll do a one-hole Meteor off, and we'll share the results of that on our story on Instagram.
That sounds good, mate. I like that. I mean, I've got probably more of an advantage as I've been throwing the Meteor longer. But that sounds good. Sounds fun, mate. Let's do that.
Yeah, but I'm better at disc golf, so we'll see.
We will see.
But before we go, I just want to have another shout out to the sponsor of the show, dischub.co.uk. If you want to get yourself a new disc like I've been doing over lockdown, then make sure to go check them out and use our code AMSIDE5 for 5% off your order. It's a nice little bonus to have a little bit of money off.
Nice, mate. And talking about checking things out, make sure you check out all of our socials. We're on Facebook at the Amside Podcast. We're on Instagram at the Amside Podcast. And as of this week, this podcast is now on YouTube. So make sure you go and subscribe, click that bell notification to make sure that you don't miss our episodes, because we're going to be releasing them all onto YouTube now, as well as all your major platforms. And we've got some very, very cool things coming to our YouTube channel. So very much looking forward to that.
And would that by any chance be the Amside Podcast on YouTube?
I believe it is the Amside Podcast on YouTube. But Guys, it's been a pleasure. Until next week, if we don't see you on the course, we'll see you on the am side.